Middle East. In fact, emotional scenes at Schneider Children's Medical Center in central Israel. Earlier on today, we've seen hostages released yesterday were reunited with their families. The director of pediatrics says the hostages are in good condition. Gilat Livni says that 4 boys and girls, 3 mothers and 1 grandmother arrived at the clinic on Friday evening to hugs and tears, much to the relief from their families. Well, this was one reunion that staff at the hospital will remember. 9-year-old Ohad Munda, who spent his birthday as a captive, was amongst 4 young children freed yesterday. Now, footage released by the medical center shows him running down a hospital corridor straight into his father's open arms. The hospital also released photos of Daniel Aloni and his 6-year-old daughter Emilia smiling upon meeting their family. But for the families of Palestinian detainees, their reunion brought relief, tinged with some sadness at the fighting that is set to continue in Gaza after the expiry of a 4-day truce. Right, so for more, we're going to be joined via video link by International Committee of the Red Cross spokesperson, Chris Hanger. He joins us live from Geneva in Switzerland. Chris, good afternoon, and thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Chris, at this point, perhaps you could just paint a picture of the situation currently unfolding since the temporary ceasefire came into effect.
You know, you have a situation where hostilities were ongoing for weeks in Gaza. And I think what we're seeing right now is that, you know, there's a collective breather that people can go out, people can reconnect and reunite with their family members. But the humanitarian situation remains extremely dire, if not catastrophic. There needs to be a regular flow of aid that's coming into Gaza. You know, we just heard yesterday from some of our colleagues that over 800 patients came from the north to the south into one of the hospitals that we are supporting with the war surgeon teams. And if you can think about that 800 patients in, you know, a health system that's close to collapse, that's something that, you know, you can't really cope with this. So the humanitarian situation remains dire. Obviously, the ceasefire is good news, and what we were also able to do is to help facilitate a hostage release yesterday. But you know, more needs to be done, and the situation remains extremely critical.
Well, Chris, speaking about the facilitation and the role of the Red Cross, perhaps you could unpack yesterday's release of hostages, the role Red Cross played in mediation, and also the relief of the families involved.
Yesterday, we were involved in an operation that facilitated the release of 24 hostages from Gaza. So our teams, it was a team of 8 people, amongst them 1 doctor in 4 ICRC vehicles. We sort of welcomed the hostages from Hamas, and we drove them throughout Gaza towards Egypt. So now they're back to safety, and our role is really the role of a sort of a neutral middleman. We speak to both parties to the conflict, so in this case Hamas and Israel. We speak to everybody with influence in order to be able to help facilitate those releases, and our role in this case was really to bring the hostages back to safety. And that's something that we're not doing only in this conflict, but that we have a history of working on such releases. But you know, there are more people that are in captivity, and hopefully we'll be able to help more in the near future.
Beyond the hostages, or some of the hostages being released, perhaps you could also talk about the aid, the progress made since the temporary ceasefire, getting to those most vulnerable and in need.
So what's important is, of course, that the aid that is coming into Gaza is not only temporary, but it's, you know, flowing regularly on a daily basis, and also to a much larger extent, because the issue that we're having is that the needs, you have to think about that, you know, Gaza has a population of over 2.3 million people, that the humanitarian needs of the population are largely outpacing what humanitarian agencies can do on the ground. So we're doing what we can. We're focusing specifically on the hospitals, specifically on people that, you know, have burn injuries, that are severely injured. And if you think about, you know, there are surgeons from the ICRC that are treating kids with severe burns that have lost entire family members. That is something that is very hard to imagine. And we're doing everything that we can to sort of give people in Gaza hope. But obviously, more needs to be done. And we're welcoming right now, of course, that more aid is coming in. But this needs to become more, you know, a permanent state.
Chris, as we wrap up, perhaps you could just speak to some of the more pressing, the urgent needs of the people on the ground and some of the challenges that you're experiencing in executing your duties at large.
So of course the needs are overwhelming, and if you look at the pictures that are coming out of Gaza, it's people have lost everything. They have no roof over their head. They have lost loved ones. They have no idea where they're supposed to go. They have no idea how they're supposed to cope in the next days and week with, when you have lost everything. The winter is coming, so it's already really cold. It started to rain, so obviously that's bringing another challenge to the people, but also to the organizations such as the ICRC to help. But at the same time, what is important is that, we have a regular flow of goods into Gaza so we can cope with this incredible amount of humanitarian needs that we're seeing. And we hope that in the future, organizations such as the ICRC, but also other ones, can do more and are available to help on a permanent basis. What I would say at the end is what we need is obviously that we have security guarantees so that we are safe to work, that we can operate, and that we can move in our vehicles, and that we can help people who are needed, who need the help the most.
No, absolutely. Chris, let's leave that conversation there for now. And thank you for your time at this hour.